giftings are, then we will never be able to fully use, or God can never fully use what we have to offer. And so a self-awareness also extends our capacity to love, right? We're called to love our neighbors as ourselves. And so we can never love anybody higher than we're able to actually love ourselves as God would love us, right? And so that there's that self-awareness. Understanding who we are leads to an awareness of others also. Also this, without an awareness of ourselves and others, what we're left with is assumptions and stereotypes. We don't take time to understand who we are, what we're capable of, and maybe some of the blind spots that we have, maybe some of the things that we're not really strong at, so that we can develop those things. We're just left with assumptions of what, sometimes what we're left with is just taking an inventory, right? You need to know what you have, because you won't give away what giftings you have. As a church right now, we're going through a study through the spiritual gifts. I think it's really been really beneficial to kind of just have these conversations with the people that I serve with in our worship ministry, the people that I serve with in our young adults ministry, because it's helped me to have conversations to help them take an inventory of the areas that they are really strong in, these dominant spiritual gifts, but also where they lack. If they lack mercy, how can they pray for mercy? How can God engage their hearts to be more merciful? You know, if they are not as encouraging, how can they learn how to be more encouraging? How can they be more, how can they start to build that gift of exhortation? If they're not someone that likes to give cheerfully, you know, all these different things. But if they don't take an inventory of what they have, they also maybe won't know what they lack. And so for yourself, I would encourage you to take some time in the next week or so, in the next couple weeks, to take inventory, to see what you have, because you won't give away what you don't know you have. I would never try to give away, like, I know Lindsay a little bit because she's been helping with coordinating our trip here, but I would never try to give away something that Lindsay has, right? Like, I would never walk up to Lindsay and grab her purse and be like, hey, does anybody want this purse? Right? Because it's not mine to give. And so understanding what you have to give is a really important part of what discipleship looks like. You can go to the next slide. Another thing that we think about with discipleship is that there is a process of what discipleship looks like. And Jesus had a process, and his tools that he used with his own disciples were transferable. Right? He came to empower his followers and not just inspire. Like, he wanted them to do things practically as well as he taught them spiritually. And so he didn't just come to inspire them, although many who walked with Jesus were inspired, right? The people that followed him and then were empowered were the ones that were part of the early church, were empowered by the Holy Spirit, filled with the Holy Spirit, right? And the ones that were inspired, like, the people that are inspired by things don't typically continue to follow through on just inspiration. And I've found for myself, being in a leadership role, if I don't understand the empowerment that I have or the responsibilities that I have, it's really hard for me to walk faithfully with those things. And so Jesus had a process. He told the disciples, you're going to do greater things. And so the other thing that we look at in terms of discipleship is, we've heard this phrase a lot, right? WWJD. Do you guys know that phrase? Do they say that phrase in Newark? Yeah? What's that phrase? What would Jesus do? Well, we know what Jesus would do because we know what he did. So the question that we ask in terms of ministry and discipleship isn't WWJD. It's really HWJDI. How would Jesus do it? Jesus is merciful. How would Jesus be merciful today? How would Jesus be merciful in Newark? We know that Jesus is generous. We know that Jesus is gracious. But how would Jesus be those things today? How would Jesus be those things today in this context, right? And so we know what Jesus did. We have it here. We know his character. Now it's applying it Now it's, how would Jesus do ministry today? With the people that God has entrusted us with, how would Jesus do ministry today? And so learning that process, figuring out, how to engage and not just inspire people, but to empower them to do the things that God has called us to do. Also, we've all heard this, right? And we have a biblical context for it, right? We're called to run a race. And I think oftentimes we say it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And that is true. It's not just this like, I'm trying to run as fast as I can, as quick as I can, right? There's a pace to it, and so it's a marathon. But I would say it's actually even more than that, right? Because when we're done with our race, that race is done. But our mindset should be, it's a relay. We're running, and when our race is done, we're able to pass that baton. Because that's what Jesus did, again, to his disciples. Greater things you will do. Jesus prepared his disciples to find themselves, in difficult situations, persecution, right? And so when Jesus ascended, he didn't say, good luck, you're on your own. He gave them practical things, spiritual things to also entrust to other people, right? And so you're in a race. It is a long race, but it's more of a relay than it is a marathon. You want to be able to pass things on. Your race isn't done. Like, I want you guys to catch this. Your race isn't done when you leave this earth. Your race continues because you've left an example. You've left a legacy. You've given insight and tools in a way to not just disciple, but to live your life faithfully unto the Lord. And so having these practical things for me has been super helpful. And so how do we cultivate this culture of discipleship? Well, you can go ahead to the next slide. The first thing is vision. And this is, if I'm going to say, the most important thing when it comes to discipleship, you want to have vision, right? And so what was Jesus' vision when he had disciples? You guys can just say it out loud. What was his vision? What do you guys think Jesus' vision was for his disciples? It's in Matthew 4. What's that? Fishers of men, right? And so what was his vision? Was it, do you want to be? Do you want to be fishers of men? Because that was the question. But the vision was, I will make you fishers of men. And then everything that Jesus did with his disciples surrounded that, right? Because that was the vision. I'll make you fishers of men. 6 words. So as this was a class that I took for a program that I'm in right now. And so they said, okay, Jesus' vision was 6 words, okay? Now, you have 3 minutes. What's your vision? And panic and anxiety filled the room as we were trying to figure out, what is my vision, right? And so I'm not going to ask you to take 3 minutes, but I would ask you to start thinking through, what is the vision that God has placed in your heart? What is it that everything you do circles around? What's the vision of this church? And what does every ministry circle around when it comes to that vision? Without vision, the Bible says, his people perish. And so vision is really important. Vision gives clarity to identity. This is the purpose of why I am here. This is the purpose of why the Rock Christian Fellowship is here in Newark, right? Vision gives clarity to identity. Vision also gives direction. It gives an aim to everything that we're doing. Vision will be connected to who I am, right? Both in terms of ministry and personally. God has given you personally a vision that everything you do kind of circles around that. And God will use what your vision is to come alongside a ministry, right, that parallels with that, and so that you can be like-minded. And so it's really important to understand. This is, I think, where a lot of ministries get in trouble, is because a person might have a vision for what their life is. God has called them, and then they start to try to partner with a ministry where that vision just doesn't parallel with that, right? And so then there's just chaos. Because personally, I want to do this, but what I believe God's called me to is this, right? And so we have to be able to say, maybe this is my vision, and maybe that's their vision, and if they don't parallel each other, how can we really be like-minded? And so vision gives identity, it gives direction. It's both connected to who I am personally and for ministry. And then vision should be concise and easily repeated, right? And so for Jesus is 6 words: I'll make you fishers of men. And maybe for you, I would challenge you, make it less. Make it less than 6 words. Make it more concise. For us as a church in Aurora, it's win, disciple, send. Win, disciple, send. That's our vision. 3 words. And everything that we do as a church, right, surrounds that vision. Win, disciple, send. So if I asked you, if I just pointed out to someone who's from the Rock Christian Fellowship, and I asked you what the vision of the church is, would you be able to all say the same thing? Do you guys have that mission statement or vision? So I want you guys to, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to put you on the spot. But these are the things that help bring clarity to what we're aiming towards. And so another question to ask is, what are your ministry's visions? So for the worship ministry, we have a vision, right? It is to believe and know that God is real. To believe and know that God is real. That's our worship ministry's vision. So every time we're creating a set list, it's that we don't just want to believe, right? We don't want to just have this understanding mentally of who God is, but we also want to experience who God is. We want to know, not just have this thought, but we want to experience who God is. And so when we're creating our set list, when we're talking through as a team, we want to talk through not believing and knowing how God is real. So that's the first V. These are all going to be V's, okay? So I'll give you that. The second V is voice. Second V is voice. Now, your voice is who you are. Who you are is what either will resonate with people or not. And it's okay. I've had to learn this, sometimes the hard way, that it's okay if people don't like who I am. Who I am just doesn't resonate with them. And that's okay. Because in the long run, you know what? That saves me from heartache. If I just understand who I am and who I'm not, and understand that not everyone will resonate with who I am. And your voice will allow you to serve and disciple people who resonate with your voice, right? We see this with Jesus. My sheep listen, they hear and know to my voice. I know them and they follow me. And so your voice is who you are. God has given each one of you, each one of us, a voice, a distinct personality. You have been created distinctly. Vision is what you're aiming towards, and that's a little bit more generally speaking, but your voice is how God uses you personally. So if you have the gift of mercy, that's part of your voice. That's a part of who you are distinctly, right? God has given that to you. Voice is personal. How God uses you in the way that you would do it. I'm so thankful. One of the hard conversations I remember with my pastor when I started serving at our church was, I don't need you to be me, right? I don't need you to be me. And I have that conversation with anyone that I serve with as well, right? I'm thankful that I don't have to try to be like Ed in the way that I serve. I'm thankful that I have been given the empowerment to be myself and the giftings and personality that God has given me, because I would never be able to be like Ed. I just wouldn't, and it would be so frustrating for me, because that's not just how God hasn't created me that way. And your voice must work in alignment with vision, or the process of discipleship in your context doesn't work. Which is why knowing vision is so important, right? Are you able to partner with people that maybe you're being inspired by, but maybe not empowered to serve with? And so knowing who you are, taking a inventory, right, of these things is really important. Okay, the next V is voyage. Talking about discipleship, voyage is this thought of, where are we going? Your vision will inform your direction, but your voyage is the process of getting there. And so things to think about when it comes to voyage, whether you're leading or you're serving under a leader, is, have I been articulating what our vision is through my voice and what voyage we're on right now? Am I articulating those things? Have I shared clearly what those things are? Also, do my people know that I'm on a voyage with them? Right? They're not just with me, but I'm on a voyage with them. Meaning, I get to enjoy the benefits of their strengths, but I'm also called to help build them up in their failures or their weaknesses. I'm on a voyage with them, right? Jesus was on a voyage with all 12 of his disciples, knowing that one of them was going to betray him. But he was on that voyage with them, right? We know that because Jesus, knowing that Judas was going to betray him, still washed his feet, right? As they were coming to the communion table, knowing that he was going to be the betrayer, he still got down and he washed Judas's feet. He was on the voyage with the 12. And then Jesus prepared his disciples for what was to come, right? On this voyage, what was to come was leaving Jerusalem, even though they wanted to stay there. He prepared them for persecution. In John 14:12, greater things. I tell you the truth, anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I'm going to be with my Father, right? He set them up to succeed. He's given them the tools, right? And then when he left, the Holy Spirit descended down and filled the disciples, right? Those who would be the part of the first church. And so voyage is a huge part of this culture of discipleship. We are on a voyage together. This isn't done by one person, it's done by many. And articulating that we're together, articulating that this is a team. We use the phrase a lot, and we'll get to some phrases, but we use the phrase a lot at our church. We is the language of ministry. It's we. We do these things, right? We get to benefit. So we have a mission team here that's come from Colorado. It took 2 days, right? It took 2 days to get here. But you know what? The people that stayed, they're doing ministry here because they were able to send us, right? We're doing this as a church. Not just the 14 that are here today. As a community of believers at Calvary Church in Aurora, we are on this team together. And we've incorporated that even on this trip, that there were some people that came to the meetings but weren't able to come practically here. And so they're called our Go team. And they stayed behind. And so when there are things that have come up, we have people in Colorado that have committed to not just pray for us, but even do things practically, so that when our flight was canceled and I was trying to answer a bunch of questions, I was able to delegate some things to people that weren't coming, and they were able to take care of some things for us practically, right? And so one of the phrases we use is, we is the language of ministry. Like, we're all on this voyage together, right? It's not just Pastor Ray is the church, right? No, we get to do all these things. All right, the next V is vehicle. After voyage, we go to vehicle. If you go to the next slide. Got that vehicle. Okay. Our vehicle is getting the vision accomplished, right? The vehicle is what we take on the voyage, right? To use our voices to accomplish the vision. Okay? Vehicle is getting the vision accomplished. So, vehicles are ways, or what ways are we discipling in our vision? Our vehicle is how we make the voyage. Ministries that help to accomplish the vision. And one of the greatest vehicles any church can have. Okay? Especially for ours, because our vision, does everybody remember what the Calvary Church's vision is? It's win, disciple, send, right? That's our vision. Mission trips accomplish all three of those things, right? We're sent, we come to have conversations, to share the good news of the gospel. We also have discipleship moments as a team, discipleship moments with others. And so missions and mission trips are a vehicle that we use on the voyage to accomplish our vision. Worship ministry is a vehicle, right? Children's ministry is a vehicle that we use to accomplish the vision. A week of SNL, right? Servants and leaders training. These are vehicles that we use to accomplish the vision. So if you just kind of look at ministries as vehicles, you begin to see that you have vehicles that you're already using. The question is, are these vehicles actually used to accomplish the vision? Or are they vehicles that we have just continued because we just continue them? Where there isn't a compelling vision, our vehicle becomes our vision. Meaning, what we do can become what we're known for rather than what our vision is. When we don't have a compelling vision, we just start doing works, right? And maybe one of those things will accomplish what we believe God has called us to. And so having that vision is really, really important. When our vehicle becomes our vision, we start to focus all our energy on one or two ministries because that's what we become known for. That's what we become known for. Rather than allowing these vehicles to surround what our vision is, to accomplish that vision. On the other side of that, if you don't have vehicles to accomplish your vision, then you're sacrificing your vision. So start thinking through, if you're overseeing ministries, think through what your vision is for that ministry, and then think of ways to accomplish that vision. Those are what vehicles those are. If you don't have vehicles, then what you're really saying is, this vision isn't as important as I thought it was, right? And so we have to have these vehicles to accomplish what our vision is. And then the last V, I'll give you two. It's either, you can say vocabulary or values, right? And these are common words or phrases that as a church or as a ministry, we all know. So if you ask someone from our church, Bree, like I'll put Bree on the spot because I know her, so I don't feel bad about putting her on the spot. What's a vocabulary that we use as a church? Okay, not Bree, Zeb. What's something that we as a church that it's just we know what this means? We lock shields, right? It's one of our axioms. We lock shields. We do ministry together. Another phrase that we've been using, especially lately, is be the church, right? We are called to be the church practically in the way that we live. Josh, what's another vocabulary word that we use, or what's a value that we have? Yeah, evangelism, right? So I've shared one, like we is a language of ministry, right? That's a value that we have, vocabulary. These are principles for all times and all spaces. These are things that they don't change from ministry to ministry, right? These things will help to accomplish what the vision is for our church. So these are things during 2020, we had 3 words that we really emphasized. It was humility, patience, preference, humility. That's what it was. Patience, preference, humility, right? And we started to, that's what we hammered down every time. We're going to have patience, right? We're going to give preference, and we're going to serve with humility. So these are principles for all time, for all spaces. These do not change from ministry to ministry. Practices can change, right? How we do things, these can change from ministry to ministry. How we accomplish the ministry can change from ministry to ministry, but the values of how we do things never changes, right? Methods are many and principles are few. We have many vehicles, but we have few vocabulary words. We have one voice, and we're like-minded, right? This is how we help one another, is to have one voice. So we try to keep those things really concise so that everybody, no matter when we say it, we understand as a community of believers, this is what we mean. So if I told someone that goes to our church, be the church, they would understand because it's said from the pulpit, it's said from leadership, it's said in every ministry, right? And so having these principles are really, really important when we're talking about cultivating a discipleship culture. Now, if you're taking notes, I want to do one more thing. I don't have a slide for it, but I want to kind of give you a matrix of how I have started to do discipleship. Again, these are tools to help. These aren't like standards. You have to do it this way. Maybe as I'm providing these things, you guys figure out as a church or in ministries ways that you would implement it for this context. Okay. So if you're taking notes, just draw a big, like a square, medium-sized square on your paper. Okay. At the top left corner, I want you to draw an arrow pointing at that corner. Okay? So if we were doing a square, right? Okay, I'm doing a square here. On the top left corner, I want you to draw an arrow at that corner on top, and I want you to write the word invitation. And I shared this a little bit during the Q&A last night. Discipleship starts with invitation. Jesus said to his disciples, "Follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." There was an invitation to come, right? So when you're thinking about discipleship, I shared this last night, but I'll say it again. People will never receive challenge or challenge higher than they're invited to. So if you want to develop people, invite them. For us, the invitation goes out. We say, you need to be part of this church for 6 months, right? But the invitation is there. For this mission trip, we made an announcement. If you want to go on this trip, the invitation is here, right? And so with that, my role in leading a team, the invitation is there, and now it's met with challenge, right? The challenge of raising finances, the challenge of practically what are we going to do, the challenge of, some of the people that are on this team are going to share during a breakout session, and they're going to be kind of teaching for the first time, right? But they met that challenge, and we have been able to come alongside of them and help them grow in those challenges. So it starts there, okay? Then you can draw an arrow going to the right, and that first top of the square, that is going to be the directive season, or side of the matrix, right? It's directive. Follow me. Jesus said, follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. This side is the unconscious incompetence. Unconscious incompetence. Or another way to put it, you don't know what you don't know. Right? When I started serving, I didn't know what I didn't know. This is the directive stage. This stage, if you want to have a bullet point, this is I'll do and you watch. Hey, do you want to learn what ministry looks like? Hey, come with me. I'll do this and you just watch. You see how things are done. You see how I'm doing these things. You don't know what you don't know. That's the first stage. And we all start here, right? Even in our own salvation, when we decided, yes, I'm going to follow Jesus, the moment we said that, moving forward, we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't know ministry was going to be this hard, right? We didn't know that we were going to have to wait for so long for certain things. Like you don't know what you don't know. And this is okay, right? Because this is the invitation. This is the first challenge, okay? Now on the right side of that square, you can draw an arrow down. This is the conscious incompetence stage. This is also the coaching stage. This is I'll do, as a leader, I'll do, right? And then as a disciple, this is I help. So I'll do, you help. This is what that relationship looks like. Okay? Now, I've given you the invitation. You're following me. Now you're watching me. Okay, now I'm going to give you a little bit more, right? So I'll do and you help. You've seen me do it. Now you start to do some things practically. This is the coaching phase, right? And this is the phase where we get much failure, right? We are conscious about our incompetence. We fully know now. We fully know what we don't know. The first stage is we don't know what we don't know. Now we're face to face with what we don't know, right? This is one of the hardest parts because when we fail, often that leads to giving up. I'm not made for this. I'm not cut out for this. I want to go home. Don't want to do this anymore, right? But in the coaching phase, in terms of discipleship, this is our greatest opportunity as leaders to come alongside the people that we've now invited to serve with us, right? So what failure does, if you want to draw on that square on the bottom right, just draw a squiggly line that goes all the way down down the page, just like all the way down. What happens when we fail is we fall into this pit. We fall into this pit and we're like, why doesn't anybody love me? Why am I here? Why did I do this? Right? And a lot of times, as we fall into that pit, our identity becomes falling into a pit. Oh, they'll bring a whiteboard out. So I'll draw it for you guys too, okay? So this is the phase, this coaching phase, is where as leaders, we have to give lots of vision casting, lots of grace, lots of patience, lots of time, right? Because the reality is, in this phase, in this season, every one of us will fail. Oh, you want me to draw it? Okay. Okay, so have you drawn the squiggly line? Okay, did you draw a little person in that pit? Draw a little person in that pit. And then put me / others, right? This is where we all end up. And so this phrase will help you. If you're a leader in any aspect, if you have any sort of oversight, this is going to be one of the phrases that will help the people that you're serving with. Okay? You guys ready to write it down? I've been there before. Because now you're saying, I'm on the journey with you, I'm on this voyage with you, and then you can share, this is what this looks like, right? Because the reality is this, a temptation that we have as leaders is to pull that person out of the pit. But there's gold in that pit. There's gold specifically for that person in the pit. And so what we have to do is not pull them out, but to reveal to them that there's actually guardrails and a ladder that get them back out of that pit. It's the reminder, I've been there before. It's this reminder, this is what the vision is, right? It's okay. We go through this. This is part of growing. This is part of learning. And so we have to reveal to them what those guardrails are, right? And that doesn't happen with just pulling them out. That also doesn't happen by just leaving them there. That's why this is part of the part of this matrix is the coaching part. Well, we have to have lots of vision casting, lots of grace, lots of patience. Because we want to be able to have the people that we serve with and are discipling to be able to come out of that pit so that when they're discipling someone else, they can say, I've been there before. But you know what? There's grace. You know what? There's mercy. This is how we get through this. This is how we figure things out. But if we just pull them out, they'll never find that gold. Those precious things that you will only learn because you were in that pit and you got out, right? So let me draw this real quick for you guys. This is directing. This is probably one of the hardest stages for people that we serve with. Because right here in the invitation, we get really excited about invitation. I mean, we have this mindset, right? I get to do this. And often that I get to do this once we get here, it becomes, man, I have to do this. But we want to keep that same mindset, right? As we vision cast and give grace and are patient, okay? The next one, this next square, so let's say they stick with it. They stick with it. They are now even more prepared to continue to serve, but also they're learning tools on how to disciple, right? This is now the consensus collaborative. This is a consensus collaborative. This is you do and I'll help. They stuck with it, and so we know that there's faithfulness in their lives, right? Now they're people that we can trust, not just with tasks, but also people, right? This is the stage where mechanical things become natural, right? Practice makes wrong. Practice does not make perfect. We are not perfect, so you'll never do anything perfectly. But practice makes permanent. Practice makes permanent. And so as they've now been aware of what they don't know, they've been made aware, and now they know Now they know how to do things. They've gotten tools, right? This is where the mechanical things become natural, right? This is, if you're a musician, this is where you're no longer having to think about music theory. It's just happening, right? This is where, if you are someone that writes, this is now not thinking about what kind of words you can use. You're just writing. Natural becomes mechanical becomes natural. It's being able to do things because they've stuck with it, right? They've become aware now of what they can do. There is this conscious competence, right? They've been made aware of what they can do. And then from there, if you do another arrow going up, this is the delegating. It's really hard to write like this. Delegating. This is the doing, right? This bottom phase is the doing. Just getting a repetition, making things permanent. And then this is the delegating phase. This is the unconscious competence, right? I'm just able to do things without even knowing it. And the difficulty here, right, is you can become self-efficient, right? Self-efficient, where you're not relying on the Holy Spirit anymore. You're not relying on getting input from other people, right? Because things are happening so naturally now that you become unconscious about what you can do. This is the phase where people are feeling awesome, things are going great. Right? This is the phase Jesus talked about greater things you're going to do, right? This is the phase where you're not just giving responsibility, but you're giving authority, right? You're empowering people, right? This is kind of, you're kind of inspiring people to keep going. This is the empowering phase, that last part of this matrix, where it's not just responsibilities. Now you've given authority to do things, to handle things, empowering, right? And then you go back from here. You got to go back to this top, right? So now this whole thing starts over again. This person has been discipled. They're in this phase, but it doesn't end there, right? Now they're the ones that have to start from here with the invitation for somebody else. And what's been super helpful for me, as I've learned to kind of develop this for myself, is that when I think about these things, it helps me to reverse engineer where I'm at and where the people that I serve with are at. Because some people that I serve with are in this fourth, where they've now taken authority. They don't just have responsibility, but now they have authority to lead and to help, right? And then others, they're in this pit. And they just need a little bit more patience and time to work with, right? But it's enabled me to really kind of see people and be aware of where people are at on this voyage that I'm on with them to accomplish the vision that we've set forward. This is also, you can write down here, the cheering. You do, that's what it is. You do, and I'll cheer. And this is, for me, where I need the most help with. I've learned to do it really well, to give things away. But I want to be able to celebrate the accomplishments of the people that I serve with, to cheer them on. I have someone, as I oversee our young adults ministry pastorally, there was someone that was raised up to take it over, so that was one less thing that I was doing every week, right? And I'm learning that I need to celebrate that guy, right? I'm learning to not just give him authority, but man, his name is Tucker. And every time I think about Tucker, I just want to send him an encouraging, man, you're doing so good. I'm so proud of you. I can't believe this happened. Man, that was a great idea. Anything that I can celebrate I want to celebrate it, because that helps to empower the people that you're serving with, right? Because what we celebrate, we cultivate. What we celebrate, we cultivate. And if you want people that are empowered, if you want people that feel like they have the authority to do things, to have inspired vision and just practically how to serve others, you want to cheer those people on. Not because they need it, but it's because it's good for them, right? We should never need the attaboys, the attagirls. But it's something, I'll tell you right now, it's something different when you hear it from someone and you weren't expecting it, right? If you were expecting it, that means you're selfish. But if you weren't expecting it and then it comes, man, it does something to you. And so what we celebrate, we cultivate. And then last thing to kind of end before we break real quick. We've been talking about developing a culture of discipleship, but I want to leave you with an atmosphere, right? Kind of what discipleship should feel like. And we see this in 1 Corinthians 13, right? The very end of that passage, it says, it talks about love, right? Love is patient, love is kind, right? And then it says, lastly, we have these, right? Hope, faith, and love, right? And so if you write this down, we should have hope. Hope for what could be. So we're thinking about discipleship. We're thinking about people that we're serving with. Hope what could be. And then faith. You need to believe for what could be. As you're thinking about those that you're raising up, believing for what could be. And then love. Meeting people where they're at. The level that they're at. Infuse love to wherever they're at. And that helps to have this atmosphere of discipleship. So we're cultivating it. Not only do we have these processes, right, to help maybe reverse engineer, but the people know that we care for them. The people know that we're not just in it for what we can get from them. We want to be a part of their life. We are on the voyage with them. So with that, we're going to take a quick break to have some coffee and some dessert and formulate questions. We're going to have a Q&A panel. Me, Pastor Ed, and Pastor Josh will be up here. So we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. Yep.
Here. We're going to take a break, but let me just ask you by way of hands, how many of you were overwhelmed by what he just shared tonight? Just overwhelmed. It's a lot of information. Okay, don't be discouraged. Because I want you, what Ian's sharing with you, I don't want you to be discouraged and just kind of think that was way too much. Because it's not only is he showing you there's a process, but it's like going home tonight. I want you just to understand, when you go home tonight, you're going to do about 20 different things to get home. And you're not going to think about any of them. You're going to get your keys out. You're going to walk to where you parked the car. You're going to click it. You're going to get in. You're going to press it to start. You're going to get on the street. You're going to make a left. You're going to make a right. You're going to watch out for that guy. New Jersey people, they don't know how to drive. Watch out for that. And that's what this process becomes in your life. So in order to learn something, you've got to be confronted with new information. And that's what we did tonight. And then you have to think it through and you go, man, I don't know. I don't think we could ever do. But if you, and I like how Ian said at the end, when you reverse engineer it, I bet you're already doing half of this stuff and you didn't even know how to put it in process. And so I think what would be good is Ian could send the paperwork to Pastor Ray, and he can print it out for you guys so you could really see it, because he did this with our staff. And don't be overwhelmed, because you will find as you step into people's lives, this will become very common for you. You don't have to draw boxes or these are all memory aids. That's all they are. They're just things to help you remember.
So let's take a quick break, formulate questions, and then we'll return. Let's do 10 minutes. We'll be back